After finishing this activity, you'll be able to change page layout orientation and change margins of Excel worksheets. Excel contains options for viewing and printing worksheets. There are two important considerations here: the way the page is oriented and the margins. By default, Excel is set to a portrait orientation, which means it is taller than it is wide. Depending on how many columns your worksheet has, though, this may not be the best orientation. Another option for the worksheet is the landscape orientation, where the page prints left to right along the long side of a page, as shown in the illustration. Another important thing is that sometimes your worksheet will not quite fit within the standard margins for a printed page. This can occur in portrait or landscape orientation, and the easiest fix could be to print closer to the physical edge of the paper. At other times, for visual reasons, you may want your margins to be a bit larger than normal. In this case, your printed worksheet would be farther away from the edge of the paper. This can be helpful in case you are making a binder and need to punch holes into the edge of the sheet. The options in viewing a worksheet may not be visible for you when you apply them on the worksheet on your computer, but they are shown and reflected when you print out the worksheet. These options are used to adjust how the margins and orientation of the pages are viewed once they are printed. To change the margins and orientation of a worksheet in Excel, we go to Page Layout in the ribbon, and from there, we go to the Page Setup section. In the Page Setup sections, we have the margins and the orientation options. Click on Orientation to find the Orientation drop-down menu. From there, you can select the orientation you want. Notice that by default, Excel is set to portrait orientation, so you will generally use this to switch to landscape. Maybe you have noticed a small difference. In column M, notice the dashed line. I will switch to portrait, and you will notice that this dashed line here has moved a bit to become here. This gives you a general idea of how the orientation of the worksheet has changed, and it is reflected on the printed area on a paper. The second option is the Margins option. Click on the Margins option in the Page Setup section of Page Layout group. The drop-down menu contains three default options: normal, wide, and narrow. The numbers in each option show how close and how far the printed area will be to the edge of the paper once it's printed. By default, the page is set at normal margins. The wide margins option will move the printed area away from the edge of the paper, while the narrow margins will move the printed area toward the edge of the paper. The picture next to each option gives you a hint of how the printed area will look like. And of course, you may also set custom margins if you need to by clicking on Custom Margins in the drop-down menu of Margins option.